Hello, welcome back to the OTB channel. Apologies, there was only one video last week, and in truth the same is probably going to be true this week. It's been a mad couple of weeks at work. Hopefully things will settle down and come back to normal by next week. Anyway, I was a little bit stunned after last week's video because I've got over 2,000 views and I'm still trying to work out why. What was so special about it? And I suspect it was something to do with the fact that I was talking about Arch and why I've installed it. Arch seems to be riding the crest of a wave at the moment as one of the most popular systems, and I had some great comments. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much, guys. I haven't got to them all yet, but I will, I promise. Now, a few people have asked me, even though I said I haven't done an Arch install so far on the channel, because, well, at the end of the day, there are so many Arch installs out there, but a few of you have asked me to do it anyway. Now, I didn't want to do one in VirtualBox because there are so many out there, so I thought, well, if I'm going to do an Arch install, how can I make it slightly different? Well, I'm going to install it on bare metal. This, for those of you who don't know, I'm a Thinkpad fan. This is a T430, which has been a project laptop for the last 8-9 months. I have another T430 which I use all the time. I picked this up on eBay for under 50 quid. It didn't have a battery, had no RAM in it. And the keyboard was terrible. Most of the keys were missing. So what I've done, I've replaced the keyboard. I installed a modded BIOS so that I could buy a cheap no-name battery rather than one of Lenovo's really expensive batteries, because Lenovo's have a whitelist which stops you installing other brands of battery. So the modded BIOS was installed. I've put 8 gig of RAM in this from RAM chips that I already had, and I thought, you know, why not do an Arch installation, but an Arch installation using the Thinkpad, so on bare metal rather than just doing it in VirtualBox. The problem I had, I thought, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to hook up this T430 to OBS so that you can see the whole process right from booting? And I realised that what I actually have, and I've used in the past, is the little Elgato cam link. Let me see if I can just find it for you. There you go, the Elgato cam link. Now, I bought this for my Canon camcorder, which I've not been impressed about. That's going to be going on eBay shortly. But I thought, well, the T430's got a mini display port, and I have a cable here, which is mini display port to HDMI. I wonder if it'll work. And it has sort of worked. So what I'm going to show you today is an Arch install on this T430, partly through the Elgato cam link and partly by SSHing into the installation. SSH is easier because I can then adjust the font size so it's better for you guys to read, and I can do some copying and pasting if necessary. But of course, when I first boot the Arch ISO, I'm not going to be able to immediately connect by SSH. So, see what you think. Hope you enjoy it. I know there's a lot of Arch installs out there. I'm going to take this process all the way through to installing a basic Mate desktop. I'm not going to finish the configuration because that would take me forever to fiddle, but I want to get those who are interested up and running far enough so that you can then just follow the wiki and do what you do. So let's give it a go. Right, so let's start this off. You'll see just a blank screen in front of you at the moment, but I'm actually booting my Thinkpad and hitting the F12 key to bring up the boot menu. That's now come up and I'm booting from the USB drive, and Grub has launched and it has started. Now it normally takes a little while for this Elgato to mirror the display I'm getting, but you can see that happening now. And it's going through the motions, and you can already see that as it's going through the motions, the font size is really quite small here. So because of that, I'm going to do the majority of the installation on an SSH terminal so that I can increase the font size, and I can also just copy and paste commands from the wiki to speed up the installation. But in order to do that, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I am connected to the internet, because you just can't do an Arch installation without. And you can see I've just pinged the Google server 8888 and it's working fine. So first thing I need to do in order to set up SSH is to create a root password, because without that I will not be able to connect. So I simply type password, type in a root password, type it in again, all good. And then all I need to do is start the SSHD service. And to do that, I type systemctl start sshd.service. All good. So, last thing before I move away from this TTY console is I need to find out what my IP address is, and for that I'll simply run IPA, and I can see that it is 192.168.1.69. So let me SSH into this system and we'll come back in a sec. Right, so let's go. I've managed to SSH into the Thinkpad. You can see I'm there, root at Arch ISO. And what I want to do, first of all, is to set a UK key mapping. So I simply do load keys UK. I then want to make sure that the time and date is set up correctly. So time, date, CTL, set-NTP, true. All good. Now, I'm going to move on to partitioning. At the moment, if I type fdiskel, you'll see that I've got a couple of things here. Actually, while it's big, I'll just scroll down. It's actually dev SDA is the disk that I'm going to go on to. Dev SDB is the USB drive. And at the moment, dev SDA has got a Linux swap file on dev SDA1 and a standard Linux partition on dev SDA2. I'm going to start afresh, and I'm going to do that by wiping out the partition table with DD. And the way I'll do this is very simply type DD, input file or if equals dev 0. The output file I want to write dev 0 to should be whatever the disk is, and in this case it's dev SDA. I'm going to wipe out 1 meg which is more than enough to wipe out the partition table. So the block size of 1 meg, and I'm going to run that once. Right, so always double check the syntax on your DD commands, otherwise you risk wiping out another partition. Okay, all good. To partition the disk, I always use a CF disk. I find it the easiest. So I'm going to run that now, and it should immediately spot that there is no partition table on this disk anymore, and it'll ask me to create one. So CF disk, dev, SDA, and there we go. Now I've been running this laptop, the Thinkpad, in standard MBR DOS mode rather than in UEFI mode, and I'm going to keep doing the same because it seems to run better in straightforward MBR mode than it does in EFI mode, especially these old Thinkpads. So I'm just going to create a DOS partition table. Okay, I'm then going to start off by creating a swap partition. I don't need a great deal, so let's say 4 gig. I'm going to make that a primary partition. I'm going to set the type to Linux swap, and I'm going to write that out. Am I sure I want to write that partition table? Yes, I do, so I'll type yes. Okay. I now move down to the free space. I hit new. There's 163.7 gigs left. I'm going to use the rest of that. Again, a primary partition. The type I'm going to use is Linux. And I also want to make that bootable. Let's write that out. Again, type yes. Okay. And now quit. And if I run fdisk again, I should see SDA1 is Linux swap, SDA2 is again just a standard Linux partition. So I now need to format those partitions. The way I do that, let's take SDA1 to start off with. I want to make that a swap partition. So I simply type make swap dev SDA1. Okay, it's wiping the old swap signature. That's all done. I now want to turn that swap on. So I simply type swap on dev SDA1. I now want to make the Linux partition an ext4 partition. So I type make fs.ext4, and it was dev SDA2. And off it goes, formatting that partition. Now it might take a little while, so I'll come back once that's finished. Right, that's the partitioning finished. So for my next stage, I need to mount that partition, the root partition that I've just created, on /MNT. So mount, very easy. I simply want to mount dev SDA2 on mount. All done. Right, now at this stage I can do things in various different ways. The easiest way I found is to do the base installation at this point. And the way that I do that is I simply type in packstrap /MNT. I'm going to install the base system and the base development system, and I hit enter, and off it goes. Again, I'm going to pause this because it takes a little while, and I'll come back once it's finished. Right, so that's done. It only took 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm back in my SSH terminal, and I'm now going to generate the fstab with this command. Gen fstab p-p/mount, and I'm sending that across to the /mnt etc fstab directory, which is done. Now I like to check it's been done, so I'm going to type cat mount etc fstab, and you can see there that it's mounted SDA1, or it's got SDA1 in as its swap directory, and it's got ext4 as the root directory. Great, so that's the fstab created. Now, I'm now going to chroot, or chroot, however you pronounce it, into the new system. At the moment, everything I'm doing is essentially from the Arch Linux Live ISO, but I want to change my root directory into this new system so that I can essentially run that new system as if I'd booted into it. And I do this by issuing the command arch chroot /mount. And you can see that my prompt has changed. I am now in that new system. Arch makes it very easy to chroot because rather than having to manually mount all the different things, it's just one command, so dead simple. Right, what do I want to do now? Right, I want to set up my time zone. And to do this, I type link -s, or -sf should I say, USR, share, zone info. Now this will depend where you are in the world, but I'm in the UK, so I'm going to go to Europe, London, and I'm going to link that to etc local time. Okay, that's done. I now want to set the hardware clock, and I want to make sure that's in UTC. The command I use for that is hwclock --sys tohc space UTC. All done. I'm then going to set up my locale by editing the etc locale.gen file. So I'm going to use nano for that. etc locale.gen, open it up. What I want to do is I want to uncomment the English or English British section, which is on ENGB. If I can just find it, if it's there. Can't actually see it at the moment. Ah, here we are. I'm going to do the UTF version, and I'm going to do the ISO version as well. Okay, so they're uncommented. I'm then going to save that file and come out of it. Okay, and I'm going to run the command locale-gen. And it's picking up that I've set the United Kingdom or Great Britain locales in that file. I'm then going to go straight away into another file, nano, etc again, locale.conf. Let me just make sure I've spelt that correctly. I have. And you'll see there's nothing in there at the moment, but I'm going to type language equals en_gb dot UTF. Have I got that right? Yeah, -8. So let me just make sure that everything's right there. It is. So that's the locale configuration file generated. Again, I'm going to save that and come out of it. Right, I also want to make sure that permanently in a console, the UK key map is chosen. So into Nano again, and this time I'm going to go into the etc vconsole.conf. I'm just checking again that I've got that spelt correctly. I have, and I'm going to type in key map in capital letters equals UK in lowercase. That's all I need to put in there. I'm going to save that file. Right, now it's a case of setting up my host name. So nano etc hostname. And I'm going to call this system OTB Arch. So that's going to be my host name. And again, I'm going to save that. Come out of it. I'm now going to move on to set up my hosts file as opposed to my hostname file. So again, nano etc hosts. And I'm copying directly here from the Arch wiki. So I'm going to set up 127.0.0.1, tabbing across and typing localhost. Then setting up the IPv6, and again typing localhost. And finally 127.0.1.1 OTB Arch dot local domain OTB Arch. Let me just have a look at that and check that I'm happy with the spellings. I'm fine with that, so I'm going to save that file and come out of it. Okay, all good so far. So believe it or not, we're almost there as far as the base installation is concerned. What I want to do at this stage in my locally installed system is again set the password for root. I'm also at this stage going to add a local user, and I do this by adding this command: user add -m -g users, which will be the main group I'm a part of, but I also want my user to be a member of the wheel group, -s bin bash OTB. So let me just check the spelling of that. User add -m -g users -g wheel -s bin bash OTB. All good. That's created. Now I need to create a password for OTB. Same process, password OTB. So that's my normal user created. Okay. Last stage before I actually reboot into this system, the system that's installed on the drive and not just using the live ISO, I need to install grub. So pacman -s grub, and I might have put OS prober there as well. so it can find any additional systems, even though there aren't any. Proceed with installation, yes. This shouldn't take very long. All done. I then want to make sure that Grub is installed to the disk. So that's a simple case of Grub install dev SDA. And we'll let it do its thing, and hopefully it does it with no error reported, which is great. Last but not least, we need to write the Grub configuration file. So Grub dash mk config O should I say, and we want to send that to boot grub and grub.cfg. Again, check that you've spelt everything right. I'm just doing that now. That looks fine to me. Brilliant. So that's Grub installed. So far then, we've installed the base system. We've set up a normal user. We have installed Grub and configured it. What I now need to do is to reboot the system, and we'll pick everything up from there, and I'll re-SSH back in. So I'll come back in a second. Right, I've just realised that I can't SSH back in to the system as yet because I need to install SSH. So we're back on the Elgato cam link. So I know you can only see a black screen in front of you, but I'm just firing up the Thinkpad. And the good news is I've got the Grub menu and it's starting to load, and hopefully we start to mirror what I'm seeing here in a second. And yes, that's just started, which is good. OTB Arch login. I'm going to log in as root. And usually what happens is I cannot connect to the internet when I've restarted the system. I might be wrong here, but let me just try and ping. No, network is unreachable. So I don't want to set up DHCP properly because I'm going to use Network Manager to manage my system in a graphical environment. So what I do to get online is this. I'm going to run systemctl start dhcpcd. Okay. I'm then going to run the command dhcpcd, and I'm going to try and ping again. Oh, it's not actually worked. So if I've started dhcpcd, what on earth is going on there? Ah, it's working now. It just took a while to come online. Great. So first thing I want to do is I want to update the database. So SYYU, and let it sync. Okay. There is nothing to do as far as a full system upgrade is concerned. Then I want to install SSH. So pacman -s open SSH. Do I want to install that? Yes, I do, please. Great. And what is my IP? My IP now is 192.168.1.69. So I'm going to SSH back into this install system, and we will continue. I'll be back in a second. So we're here again. What I didn't show you, and I probably should have shown you actually, is I used the command systemctl start sshd to start the open SSH server, and then I was able to SSH straight in. So we've got our base install up, but I now need a graphical environment. So I'm in root, the root user, and I'm going to start installing my graphical environment. So I do this in stages. I'm going to install Xorg first. So pacman -s xorg-server. Default is all. Do I want to proceed with installation? Yes, I do. Just to talk you through what I'm going to do after this, once the X server is installed, I'm going to install Mate and the Network Manager and Network Manager applet. I'm then going to install cups, and I'm also going to install the system config printer graphical user interface, because if I don't install that, there'll be no way to graphically configure my printer within Mate. I'm then going to install LightDM so that I have a login manager, and finally I'm going to enable the LightDM, the Network Manager service, and I'm also going to install and enable cups. So the X server is now installed. I'm now going to install Mate. So pacman -s, Mate Extra, Network Manager, all in lowercase that, and it helps if I spell it right, Network Manager, Network Manager applet, yeah, that's right, and I'm going to hit return. Default selection all, proceed with the installation, yes please. Total install size 1568 megs, and the total downloaded size 323 megs. So let me start this off and I'll come back in a second. Okay, so that's Mate installed. I now want to get the cup system installed. So again, pacman -s, cups, and system config printer. Now I might have to download some PPDs to get it working properly afterwards, but just let's get the system up and running to start off with. So installation, yes please. This shouldn't take too long at all. And as you can see, it's going quite quickly. And last but not least, on this initial installation, I want a login manager. So I'm going to do pacman -s, LightDM, which has some nice themes actually that you can play about with. But for the time being, I'm just going to install the basic LightDM GTK greeter. Yeah, watch your typing. Check everything as you type it. Okay, proceed with installation. Yes, please. And that's done. Right, really important. You want to make sure that some of these services do actually start when you reboot. So, systemctl enable. I'm going to do the LightDM service to start off with. Okay, next, I'm going to enable Network Manager .service. Now you'll notice when I installed it, Network Manager was all lowercase, but when you enable it as a systemd unit, Network Manager, the N and the M have to be uppercase. Okay, that's done. And now finally, I'm going to enable cups. And the way to do that is org.cups.cups d.service. And that is just about that. So I'm going to use the Elgato again when I reboot the system. Hopefully we will boot into a very plain Mate desktop, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I know you can only see a blank screen in front of you, but I've got it hooked up, the Thinkpad, to the Elgato. I'm just booting now. We're going to grub. I'm clicking OK, and I'm hoping we are going to get some sort of... Aha! I think we might just have seen the beginning. There we go. It's actually a little bit smaller, this screen. So let me just log in. And see if I can stretch this out a little bit for you. There you go. And there you can see, well, there you can see the Mate desktop installed with Arch. Yes, we're very plain at the moment. Yes, there's very little installed, not even a web browser. And yes, the fonts look horrible. That's just part and parcel, but Network Manager is working now. And you can see that actually the wired connection is working. Let's just bring up a terminal. Mate terminal. And if I ping 8888, yeah, it's connected automatically. So, this is where your work starts. You obviously want to play around with this now and pretty it up, but you can follow the Arch wiki and put in the fonts that you want, get your printer set up, get it looking how you like it to look, play around with different themes, but that is a base Arch install. So let's have a chat. So there you have it. Oops. T430 running Mate. Let me just shut this down. It's not finished by any stretch of the imagination, and neither is the laptop. We're nearly there. However, once the fan starts going on this laptop, it sounds like a jet engine. It needs replacing. I do have a spare fan. A new fan to put in it, but it's a bit of a major job to fit it, so haven't quite got to that stage yet, but will. Let me just put it down there. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think I should emphasize right from the word go that I don't think Arch is a distro you should use until you have a little bit of experience using Linux. I'd say 12 months, unless you feel that you're ready to take the next step. But please don't follow along if you've never booted into a Linux desktop before. What I should also say about this video, I did have a comment on, by one person who said, for God's sake, can't you stop the autofocus? Unfortunately, if I switch it off on this this particular webcam that I have, the focus goes out completely, so I'm afraid we're stuck with the autofocus, and I'll try not to move so it doesn't keep trying to focus in. But that's essentially my Arch install. There are quite a few ways to do it, but it was a little bit of a learning experience for me, doing it over SSH and using the Elgato Camlink, so that's proved quite useful. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. But for now, guys, this is going to be it for this weekend. I hope you like this as well. I'm still trying to get over why so many people liked last week's, but we'll see how this one does. Thanks very much, guys, and have a good week. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please like and subscribe. It really helps. And stay well until next time.